All right, welcome back to Incorrectly Political, where we take you inside the minds of today two high school students. And the topic we're going to be covering today is college admissions. So here we have Quinn. We're going to be diving into a few subtopics about college admissions, which I think there's the obvious stereotypes of, it's stressful and tough, but I think today we're going to try and bring some more unique viewpoints of not only like choosing which college you want to go to, but also price tags, other options, and how standardized test processing works with this. So right off the bat, let's just get into the obvious: grade stress. Quinn, how do you feel about just regular GPA grade stress and extracurricular activities that you sometimes just actually feel forced to do just to put on your college resume?
Well, in recent years, the average GPA for college admissions has gone up. I'll talk to my older siblings who went to really good colleges, and their GPA was, not even a 4.0. And nowadays, a lot of kids, have to get a 4.0 or above to get into the same colleges. And I think that kind of puts some stress onto students to, never be able to mess up even a little bit in high school, which can be really stressful because, you can just have a bad semester, and that can completely mess up your chances of getting into the college that you want. And if a 4.0 is the average, then you have to get above a 4.0, which means taking a bunch of honors credits, which is more work than regular classes. And also, colleges like to see those honors credits nowadays. They like to see AP, and that's a lot of extra work for the students. Some of them find it a good challenge. It's challenging, but some students just find it super stressful.
Yeah, I think it's not even just grade inflation that has really pushed people to 4.0s. I mean, obviously, nowadays, it's really just all about the grade getting A, and there's people who have really this. It's not even really about being smart to get the A anymore. It's about figuring out the way to, quite honestly, manipulate the teacher and the coursework in order to get the A as quick as you can without doing as much work as you can. I think that grade manipulation, figuring out a way to conform as easiest and efficiently as you can, is really what separates the A students instead of actual intelligence and hard work these days.
Yeah, and like we talked about in the previous episode, how we can retake any test nowadays multiple times. It honestly encourages students to game the system to not try the first time around, and then if they get an A, they didn't put in any effort, they didn't learn anything, they just managed to get an A. And then if they don't get an A, we put in more effort to get that A, but it encourages us to just game the system to get the A instead of actually learn.
So moving on to our next topic, it's kind of similar, but the way it operates is a little bit different. It's ACT and SAT testing, which, if you don't know, is standardized testing, which is used as colleges a significant indicator of how successful you're going to be in college, which actually data is kind of showing that's not really true anymore. What do you think about that, Quinn?
Yeah, I think that's definitely shown by how they are going to discontinue the SAT, I'm pretty sure, which I think is a good step.
And optional testing now.
Yeah, optional testing now too. With COVID, a lot of colleges are continuing that. As I've started my college search process, every single college I've looked at has had testing optional but encouraged. For some students, the standardized testing is a really huge stressor because some people just don't test well. They can get good grades in school, do well in that setting, but then they get sat down for a 3 or 4 hour test, they just don't do as well. And that can sometimes really mess up them getting into college, or once they get into college, their ability to get scholarships and be able to afford the college they want to go to.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Just a really quick touch up here. I think obviously one of the biggest problems, obviously with ACT and SAT testing, is kind of this pay-to-win scheme where I know friends who are in school that have been studying since middle school for the ACT test, which you take junior year. I mean, 5 or 6 years ahead of the test you're studying for it is absurd, but if they have the time and the money, they're willing to do it, and it's all just to get into college. I think it creates this really toxic kind of pay-to-win scheme to get into college when it really should be based on academic merit. Don't you agree?
Yeah, it's definitely should be on the merit of the student, not how much money their parents can afford to put them through tutoring and stuff, because some students aren't able to afford all the tutoring and prep for the ACT, and so they might not get as good of a score when they might actually be smarter and more prepared for college, but they won't get the same opportunities.
On the other hand, students that are wealthier generally will have more help in terms of, private schooling and extra tutoring, which will increase their academic merit. So it's tough either way to try and get, the most qualified students in when, having a wealthy background really does give you that advantage, I would say. So moving on to our next subtopic, we're not just discussing college admissions here. We're going to actually talk about other options, such as trade schools or trying to find a job right out of high school. I just wanted to know, what do you think about those options? How viable do you think they are today for you without, taking into account how your parents would feel about it? Because that's really, really, I think, critical for high school students is, their parents' considerations.
Well, in my classes that I took this past year, the counselors would come around and start talking to us about college and college admissions and the options. And I only really heard about trade school options in one class, which was woodworking for me. So that's like a class where you're already learning the trade school topics, like the basics, and that's the only class that I heard about trade school in. And so I don't know if it's such a viable thing anymore because, it might be valuable, but students aren't really hearing about it unless they kind of seek it out or seek out the classes that would lead into that.
Yeah, I actually really, to add on to your last part, I think the reason students don't listen to it much is because there's a huge stigma against trade schools. I mean, if you actually look at the data, going into trade school as an electrician for 2 years, coming out of it, you can easily within a few years start making six figures, which is really good even when compared to 4-year liberal arts degrees or just regular university degrees. And I think it's this stigma that people have put around going to 2-year trade school versus, getting the 4-year bachelor's degree. I think going with the trade school option is actually very economical for people and can lead them much better down the long run. But because of the stigma, and for me personally, pressure put on by parents to have higher achievements of standards can really mess up some students and not lead them to always make the best choice when it comes to college admissions.
Also, there's been recently grade inflation, but over the past, 60-ish years, there's been diploma inflation. I read a great book about it. It's called The Case Against Education. It talks about how, like in the 60s and 70s, not many kids were going to college out of high school. They were, go out, go to trade school, get apprenticeships, get jobs. And now the percentage is way up. I'm not exactly sure on the numbers, but I think it was like 20 to 40% back in the 70s. Now it's up to like above 60%. I'm pretty sure it's much higher than it used to be. And that what we're learning in college isn't better than what they used to learn in college. But nowadays, employers are looking for that college transcript to show that, you are able to conform to society because, employers, they want a worker that will conform to their standards, conform to what they want them to do. That's what they would consider a great employee. And college is really a great way to show that if you are able to, do what you're told for 4 years.
Kind of like a perseverance step, that you can
Yeah,
show
it's just showing that you can do it. So then when you get out into the working world, they know that you can do it. And the college diploma kind of shows that. And now in some fields, you even need more. You need master's, PhD, doctorate. I mean, for some fields, like a doctor, you kind of need that. But for other fields, you don't really. And they still make you, go out and get a master's.
While we have trailed off a little bit from our original topic, I think what we're trying to really get here is the main takeaway of today is not only that kids are just unnecessarily stressed for like college admissions, but I think that this overeducation in our society, it's really not to like inform our individuals and make them about better places. It's more about really conformment, Quinn and I believe. I think conformment in the ability to endure through these educational responsibilities, show companies that you're willing to, go through their protocols and forms. Well, we don't think that, to going all the way through the education is necessary to really complete the job. and you're just adding on more money, and
Yeah,
that's really one
another
part of the stress.
yeah,
right?
another thing that we wanted to touch on was like you said, the money. So that's been a huge stressor for me personally, as I look at where I want to go to college, because there's a huge range in prices that I'm looking at. But a lot of colleges I probably won't end up paying the sticker price, so I don't really know what I'm gonna end up paying it, and that really makes my decision hard as a person going into my senior year, trying to decide what my future is going to be, and I don't have all the information that I can, because colleges, they try to wow you with a sticker price that makes it look like they're a super good school, but then you don't have to pay that because they give everyone a scholarship. But it just makes it really hard for me to decide where I want to go to school when I don't know what I'll end up being paying, because I could get a really good scholarship and pay almost nothing, or I could be paying close to the sticker price and have to take out loans, and just have added stress later in life. Like, a lot of people have to take out loans. I hope that I won't have to be able to. But yeah, I think that just colleges not telling you what you'll actually be paying, I think that's it's a big trend nowadays, and I don't think it's a good one.
Yeah. So I think this has been a really good conversation about college admissions. I mean, we covered on a few topics. I mean, obviously there's the problem of grade stress, you would say, and I think one of the overarching issues in college admissions is it's kind of, it's kind of a pay to win scheme sometimes, is that, with the standardized test scores as well as, tutors for grades. I think that's a big problem these days, and it's hard to distinguish, someone who's from a poor background who has academic merit versus someone who's kind of been helped all their life with tutoring and extra practices and books. I think the other thing you touched on, paying for college, I think it's really a nightmare too from a high school student's point of view, because you really never know what you're going to be paying for. And I think the brief conversation we had about other options is also really enticing for college students, not college students, high school students, because if you look at the data, you can make really solid money coming out of other high school jobs. But the issue is sometimes these days, at least I personally feel that I'll be kind of shamed upon if I try and go to a lower education trade school instead of trying to get a higher education bachelor's and then master's degree. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I definitely think that there's a bit of a stigma against going to not as high, like not going to college, going to other schools. I definitely feel like that's a bit frowned upon nowadays, and you can still get a good education without going to college and spending a bunch of money and still make a good living.
Thank you very much for tuning in to Incorrectly Political. We'll see you next time.